Welcome back to our program, Transportation Sales Tax, Roadwise sometimes called. We're here in Mount Pleasant. The Phillips community has had a tremendous program this morning celebrating the new sidewalk in the area and also land that they've been able to receive through various organizations. We want you to hear a little bit from the speakers this morning because some were very good. They challenged the community, and it shows the kind of diversity in terms of programs that are being used in this area to make this an historic place. Take a look.
Living the present and looking toward the future. That's our motto. That's the Phillips Community Association motto. They both want to preserve property for green space for future generations. With the help of these two groups, the Phillips Community Association have purchased 8 acres for the community center and a passive park. The property you parked on this morning is part of the 8 acres.
Well, truly it's a privilege and an honor to be here today and to be a part of this great opportunity to recognize a part of the history and the culture through the walking of a walkway, a sidewalk through the Phillips community. I was acquainted with the Phillips community nearly a dozen years ago. As Mr. Havisham indicated, the National Park Service, under the leadership of Congressman James E. Clyburn in the year 2000, was asked to conduct what we call a special resource study. And this is a vehicle of the National Park Service where we go out in the community and to get a sense and a pulse of what the community believe, feel, and think. It was in this journey 12 years ago that I became acquainted with the Phillips community and specifically with Mr. Richard Havisham. At that time, he told me very clearly and very proudly the history of this property, the integrity of the history, and also the pride of those who lived here. And I can say 12 years later, I considered Richard to be a friend. But throughout this entire journey, I've seen Richard and the Phillips community evolve. Historically, in Gullah Geechee African American communities up and down the coast, as Mr. Havisham alluded, my responsible agency tells me that I'm responsible for communities stretching from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way to Jacksonville, Florida. And I encountered certain attributes in all of those communities: history, trust, belief, and integrity. But I also sometimes encountered distrust and apathy. And so I shared with Mr. Richard Havisham that if the Phillips community is going to grow, if it's going to sustain itself, if it's going to move forward in the 21st century, it must and it shall and it have to engage itself in the affairs of government, whether it's federal, state, or local.
This is really, truly a phenomenal experience for our organization. I'm the executive director of the Mount Pleasant Land Conservancy, and our organization was created to work on projects just like this, to work with urban landowners to preserve the integrity of their communities by preserving some of these natural spaces that are so quickly going away.
This morning was an exciting time, I would imagine, but I didn't fully understand how the Greenbelt Project worked in concert with your organization. Would you explain that to us?
Absolutely. So the Greenbelt program designated $1.2 million that was somewhat set aside for a small landowner program. And our organization, the Mount Pleasant Land Conservancy, is focused on primarily small urban parcels of land that we try to preserve. So our group was tapped by the Greenbelt Advisory Board to steward that $1.2 million and help find organizations and properties that could fall under that criteria. So we helped facilitate the purchase of 2 of the parcels over here that combined to make the full 8 acres. And then we conveyed those to the Phillips Community Association, encumbered with some conservation easements that are going to preserve the property.
Now, was this transportation sales tax money that was in your area, or was it handed to you through the Greenbelt program?
It is Greenbelt program money. So it's transportation sales tax money that was in the Greenbelt program already, but it was just dedicated to a small landowner program. And our group stepped in to help be the conduit to find landowners that could apply for that funding.
I was going to ask you that. What is the goal of this organization, of your organization?
So our mission is to enhance the quality of life within the Charleston County community through the preservation of urban and rural spaces. So we are really focused on properties just like this one that are really in the heart of an urban area or of an urban growth boundary area, and we help preserve those areas so that the natural integrity of those spaces are maintained for future generations.
What is fantastic about this is that the two organizations work together. Well, three, really.
You bet.
Three organizations in this community that work together with the transportation sales tax, the Green Belt, and then your organization. That was a wonderful thing, but was it challenging?
Oh, you bet it was. Absolutely. In a lot of respects, there were challenges because you had so many moving parts, but collaboration is the name of the game these days. I feel like you see so many more organizations and entities collaborating, so I think we're all getting used to it, and folks are getting comfortable with it, and so it worked out. It takes maybe a little bit more work, but it's well worth it in the end, for sure.
Where do we go from here with Phillips community?
Well, our organization's responsibility is to, at this point, just monitor the property because we are responsible for making sure that it is created into the vision that we all agreed upon. So we will monitor it on an annual basis, and if there ever is a need in the future, our organization takes on the responsibility to legally defend the property to make sure that the natural integrity and the intention is kept intact.
Now, are other organizations invited to contact you?
You betcha, absolutely. I mean, we still have, there's this little program, there's actually still $85,000 left in that fund, which isn't a lot, as you can imagine, in this community to do anything with, but there's still some money in there. So if folks wanted to reach the Mount Pleasant Land Conservancy, we have a website, mountpland.org, or they can just Google us and find the Mount Pleasant Land Conservancy, but we'd love to talk to more folks about preserving more little small places like this within our urban environment.
Kathy, tell us a little bit about the Green Belt Project and how it ties into the transportation sales tax program. And then finally, if I can get all my questions in now, how did you this program end up being a part of the Phillips community?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the $1.3 billion that's expected to be raised of the half-cent sales tax, $221 million of that was set aside for green belts. And the reason the voters did that is they were wanting to make sure that the impacts of building roads would be mitigated by protecting green space in our county. And so through the development of the Green Belt Plan, which was all based on citizen input, there was an urban program developed. That urban program set aside money within the urban growth boundary, mainly for municipalities, but also for the unincorporated areas within the urban growth boundary, and the Phillips community fit perfectly into that. They are in Mount Pleasant, but they're in the unincorporated part of Mount Pleasant, and so as a nonprofit, they applied for urban unincorporated funding and was awarded funding to purchase originally 4 acres on their own, and then they get in partner with the Mount Pleasant Land Conservancy to purchase 4 more acres. So now they own in total 8 acres that are adjacent to one another for a nice passive park.
The Greenbelt program has been tremendous in preserving this wonderful heritage of ours in Charleston County. Land-wise, people-wise, it is so exciting. How long can you hold out? I mean, is the money going to be there a while?
Well, that's a great question. We actually, as I said, the funding that was available for the Phillips community, Urban Incorporated, those funds were actually exhausted a couple of years ago. So there won't be any more funding unless something changes. There won't be more funding for that, because what the citizens said they wanted us to do was to borrow the funds up front to try to save as much land as possible instead of waiting for the revenue to come in each year over the 25-year period. So all the funding that was available, that's it. That's what we borrowed up front. There are some funds still available in the municipality area, municipal areas of the urban program, and there's also about $12 million left on the rural side as well. So there is some more opportunity to protect more land.
So you're taking more people who are coming forward with their applications. That's still being done?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. We usually hold 2 funding cycles a year, and we just finished our second one in August, and those projects are actually going forth to County Council in November, and we'll probably have another funding cycle in March of 2013.
Besides history, are there other reasons why those funds would be provided to an organization that wants to preserve land and the sort?
Yes, ma'am. A lot of the communities, because they are unincorporated, especially, they're not in a municipality, they need parkland, places for them to do recreation, for their kids to play, gathering places for the community to have events, reunions, those types of things that are so important to communities that the families have grown up together. So there's been several projects in the rural and urban areas where smaller communities have applied for funding, and they've been able to preserve land for those types of events specifically.
This was a great program this morning, wasn't it?
It was. It's beautiful. It's a great being a part of the community. It really is.
It was good seeing you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The half-cent sales tax program is a big success for Charleston County. Our residents voted in favor of this sales tax, which is providing roads, drainage, sidewalks, greenbelt funds, money for CARTA. These actions are resulting in many communities being helped in many, many ways. This particular community is a great example of the coordination between not only the half-cent sales tax money going for safety improvements like the road and drainage, but for the Greenbelt Fund, which help make this possible as well.
Councilman Sass, what a day this has been. What do you think about what's happening here?
It's a great day. This is a wonderful community, good organizers, leadership by the elders, and these improvements are going to make a huge safety improvement, the drainage and sidewalk improvements. But not only that, I'm really enthusiastic, or I'm really excited by the combination of the Greenbelt and the Roadwise working together in the same project here. And I think this is a great win-win for Charleston County, and especially for Mount Pleasant.
Would you say that the transportation sales tax program at this point has worked to your satisfaction in a project like this, and projects banding together?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I would. It's a great combination, putting these together, and it's working out for the community, and that's where our money is going. It's going right back into the community. It stays right here. We spend it all right here. It doesn't go to Columbia. It doesn't go to Washington. The money is all spent right here for our citizens, the people who paid the tax.
This is your district, and there's a lot of history here. Were you familiar with all of that when you heard Michael Allen this morning?
Not all of it. I have to say I had a good history lesson this morning, but we never stop learning, and I am a student of history, and I enjoy learning whatever I can about my community, and there's so much to learn.
This is not your first time in this community.
No, ma'am. This is a great community. I'm excited anytime I get an invitation to come over here.
Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.